Hello and welcome everybody to a brand new video. And today we're going to be talking about the propaganda interrogation of the Crocus City shooters that was broadcasted on the Russian state media. And I think this is a very interesting topic, and I think you guys will enjoy this video because it will definitely broaden your mind on what the Russian state television shows the Russian people. As you guys know, I have left Russia. I've lived in Moscow, and I still have not covered the horrific events that happened over at Crocus City. If you guys didn't know, on the 22nd of March, 2024, a terrorist attack carried out by the Islamic State occurred at the Crocus City Hall music venue. The attack began around 8 p.m. Moscow time, shortly before the Russian band Picnic was about to start playing out their concert for the people who bought their tickets and came over. Most of you guys have seen the horrific videos that some people have recorded inside of the Crocus City Hall. A lot of people are still asking themselves questions on how is it possible that the security at a venue like Crocus City Hall was so horrible. And nobody actually discusses the fact that there is a Rosgvardia station, which is like Homeland Security type of thing, literally 5 minutes drive away from Crocus City Hall. And a lot of people are asking themselves questions. How come it took them an hour to get over there when everything was over and everybody left and Crocus City was blazing in flames? When this happened, straight away I thought one thing. Kremlin is definitely going to be blaming this on Ukraine, because who else is there to blame, right? This is what Kremlin sees. Because they thought it's a great idea to use this horrific event for their propaganda machine. Very quickly, the Islamic State said, hey guys, it was us who did it. We got this all planned out. This was planned out and we did this. Now, there are actually a lot of conspiracy theories about the event that happened. One of those theories is that this is connected to the 2016 Brussels bombings, which actually also happened on the 22nd of March. Now, a little about the Brussels bombings. I'm actually going to read this out so you guys would understand what I'm talking about. On 22nd of March 2016, two coordinated terrorist attacks in and close to Brussels, Belgium were carried out by the Islamic State. Two suicide bombers detonated bombs at the Brussels airport in Zaventem, just outside Brussels, and one detonated a bomb on a train leaving Mailbeek metro station in the European quarter of Brussels. 32 people were killed and more than 300 were injured. Three perpetrators also died. A third airport attacker fled the scene without detonating his bomb, which was later found in a search of the airport. A second metro attacker also fled, taking his bomb with him. The Islamic State claimed responsibility of this attack. Now, considering the dates are the same, we could logically connect that this is probably done by the Islamic State, because, you know, they take the date serious. So on the 22nd in 2016, it happened in Brussels. And on the 22nd, 2024, it happened in Crocus City Hall. Now, a lot of you guys actually didn't know there's also another conspiracy theory that I didn't think I'm going to be involving in this video, but apparently, well, not apparently, this is what happened. Trump had one of his beauty contests over at Crocus City Hall, and the owner of Crocus City Hall was actually a very good friend of Trump. So could that be connected? Could the Islamic State hate Trump, and that way they connected Crocus City Hall with, you know, being friends with America and all that stuff? I don't know, but that is also one of those conspiracy theories. Obviously, the Kremlin doesn't believe that it was done by the Islamic State. So they did some research and, you know, looked into this a bit more deeper. After they did their research, they found out that this was probably not done by the Islamic State, but rather by Ukraine. How surprisingly, you blame Ukraine when the Islamic State literally said, hey, you, it was us who did this horrific thing, and we take the responsibility for this. We are the bad guys. We did this. No. Kremlin says, no, it was not you. How could you say something like that? It was obviously Ukraine. The Russian state television broadcasted the interrogation of those shooters to see what their plan was. But before we watch that video, I would like to do a bit of an explanation of why one of those shooters was actually missing an ear. What scares me the most is, first of all, before we get into this, I totally agree that those guys should rot in prison for the rest of their lives because they took lives of people, and this is a horrific thing to do. They should be in prison for the rest of their lives in the smallest confinement you could ever find. But what I don't agree with is there's actually a video, which I'm not going to show here because I'm pretty sure that this would ban my YouTube channel or do whatever. One of the Russian special forces, when they actually caught one of their shooters, they chopped off a piece of his ear and tried to make him eat that. Now, this is unacceptable because this goes against all the constitutional laws, all the normal laws in Russia, because even a criminal, when you're taken into custody and you were caught, you should be treated with dignity and respect no matter who you are. Obviously, those people are horrible, but still, when you're caught, there's not much they can do now, so you should treat them like a bank robber or I don't even know. But you shouldn't be cutting off people's ears because this is just inhumane and horrible. I know a lot of people are going to be trying to justify it, saying that, oh, look at the amount of people they have killed, but you still can't torture people. Interestingly enough, there's actually another case that happened of torture in interrogations, but it wasn't of a terrorist. It was of a Moldovan TikToker that used to make videos in Russia all the time. He used to stream on Twitch. He was very popular. And then when the war started, he made a TikTok about the Russian military, which wasn't even offensive, but they took offense of it and arrested him. And when they arrested him, they beat him up, they tortured him, they tased him, and they also tried to make him sit on a bottle. I'm not sure if he did sit on it or didn't, but I'm not surprised. This is the type of thing that happens in Russian prisons and in Russian interrogations and police stations and stuff like that. If they want to get some information out of you, they will do whatever. Even put you on a bottle. Now that's horrible. Now I'm not going to go into too much detail, but in one of his interviews, he actually said that it was a 2-liter bottle. How horrific. So you could see it doesn't only happen to mass shooters, terrorists, etc., etc. It also happens to TikTokers who weren't even political or anything like that. He was just making TikToks, making fun, and that's it. Now, I think it is the time we actually check out the video that the Russian state media was broadcasting to the Russian citizens so that they could see what those shooters were planning on doing. Let's watch the video.
What were your other plans after the attack?
Story of one.
Thank you very much, Mr. Gozadar.
In the new segments of interrogations published by the FSB, all 4 terrorists named the coordinator, Saiful. He designated the attack site, Crocus City Hall, supplied the weapons and provided an escape route.
Accordingly, he mentioned that he was going to Ukraine to them. Time has passed. We did something, looked beautiful. Supposed to wait for the wind. 1 million rubles each.
For the promised fee, 1 million rubles each, the terrorists immediately headed down the M3 Moscow highway after the attack. Kiev, they were speeding at nearly 170 kilometers per hour. Our security forces intercepted the car at this point near the village of Komun, or 141 kilometers left to the Russia-Ukraine border. Smartphones, even though damaged, fell into the hands of the investigators. The information obtained indicates that the fugitives were receiving instructions from their coordinator Saifullah until the end.
Saifu said that you will be met there by a civilian Ukraine, to groups, theorists, misregulations, and the like.
On the other side, for terrorists, it turned out 2 corridors were being prepared. Our intelligence services recorded the activity of the Ukrainian armed forces in the mining near border villages Chuiki, Kovka and Sopich, Sumy. Remote areas. These places are secluded, dense, forest. From the nearest populated areas in Russia to the border is no more than 4 kilometers. Here, the terrorists were supposed to burn the cars and go on foot. On foot, following the commands of the same Saifullah.
Teddy bear with an inexpressible bottom. His point is wider, perform marked forever.
For Land Control Center nuclear facility.
Then it didn't happen. The terrorists have been detained and are cooperating with the investigation, which is now identifying the curator's identity of the safe. Both the immediate perpetrators and the sponsors in a broader sense. At the same time, the facts presented by investigators are enough to talk about the direct involvement of the Ukrainian side in preparing for the slave massacre in Krakow. First of all, it has been established that the mercenaries received money from Ukraine shortly before the massacre. Secondly, an attempt to escape in Kiev, whereas the hitmen themselves say their main fee awaited them. And finally, the meeting of terrorists at the border organized by the Ukrainian Special Services. Impossible without an order from above. A bright touch in this picture is the photos from the detainees' phones left after chatting with this Saifullah. The symbolism of nationalists, a yellow-blue flag. It's more like a photo set of a Ukrainian fighter, not a radical Islamist.
It's actually quite funny that the shooters were asked to go to Ukraine after they did the shooting so that they would leave Moscow and drive like 500 kilometers over to the border and then make their way to Kiev. Like they said, you know, Russian state media couldn't have done a story without just saying Ukraine. They had to mention that that the shooters had to go to Kiev, to the capital, because that is what the Russian president is saying, that the nationalists, the worst people are in Kiev. So obviously they had to mention that those shooters had to end up going to Kiev to receive 1 million rubles. Now the question that I'm having myself is, why would they go to Kiev, to Ukraine, to receive 1 million rubles? What would they be doing with rubles in Ukraine? You know, you could have hryvnias, or you could have dollars, or you could have euros. What's the point of rubles in Ukraine? I doubt that they exchange rubles right now in Ukraine. That doesn't make any sense whatsoever. I don't even know what to say about this. This just sounds ridiculous to me. Also, what I really don't understand, that they were driving that banger of a car at 170 kilometers an hour all the way. You guys are probably asking me, how much is that in miles? That's 105 miles an hour driving from Moscow to the Ukrainian border. And they had 141 kilometers left before they were able to enter Ukraine. They were captured before. That doesn't make any sense whatsoever. Now, before anybody says anything, I'm not sure what border they're showing here. And is this the border that Russia recognizes, or the border that Ukraine and Europe recognize? Probably not, but let's look into the way that the Russian state media is showing. So basically 141 kilometers until they could enter, I'm guessing, the Ukrainian-controlled land. We could say it that way, right? First of all, you know, I had a Cadillac in Russia, and I did like driving fast. I'm not gonna lie to you. I was driving all over the place. I had the cameras. I knew where the cameras were, so I know when to slow down and speed up and all that stuff. But driving at 105 miles an hour all the way through those highways, and those highways were actually that I used to take to drive back home. And there are tons and tons of cameras, and if you catch 2 or 3 or 4 of them in a row, you would have a traffic police unit dispatched to go and catch you. How did they drive for like 400 kilometers untouched? I have no idea. This sounds a bit sketchy to me. And considering how in the world could that car even go 105 miles an hour? Even if they were driving it that fast, that would be like revving up the engine so much that they would have to stop at gas stations every so now and then. And there's so many cameras all around the place that you could catch them. They didn't even change the license plates of the car. How is this possible? I have no idea. This happened on a Friday. On a Friday, everybody from Moscow drives over to the Moscow region where they have their countryside houses, their dachas, and the traffic jams are horrible. You'd get stuck in a traffic jam for so long. How did they pass through Crocus City over to where they were caught with no problems? It doesn't make any sense. It feels like their car was flying or something. There's no way that they would be able to go that far so quickly on a Friday. And I'm pretty sure in any country on a Friday, you would have traffic jams, but in Moscow, it's just horrific. So they were supposed to be escaping through a war zone. Guys, like a war zone. You would have soldiers from one side and another side. How would that be possible? I could imagine something like that happening during peaceful times where you wouldn't have, such high security at the borders. But how would you pass through, for example, Russian soldiers to go through into the Ukrainian border? I don't like this doesn't make sense whatsoever. I don't know why nobody talked about this, but this makes zero sense whatsoever. I wonder what sort of substances they take while making news like this. They also said that the Ukrainian armed forces were removing mines so that a few of those shooters could get through. What's the point? What would be the point of this operation? To remove so many mines so that 3 or 4 people can pass through? What is this, a James Bond movie? And how would you even imagine removing mines in a war zone where you have Russians on one side, Ukrainians on the other side, and you have some shooters driving down for $10,000 each to Ukraine to receive money in the Russian currency? What are they even talking about? This doesn't make any sense whatsoever. The fact them saying that Ukraine has paid them makes absolutely no sense, because this whole story of them escaping sounds like a hoax. What I find interesting is that they found those 2 destroyed phones which had like Ukrainian flags, Ukrainian symbol, Ukrainian flag on a tank, on a phone. Why would they have that on a phone? This really sounds like a setup. Why would they have a phone in the first place to have those photos in? I mean, in Russia, if you get pulled over and somebody checks your phone and you have a bunch of Ukrainian flags, they're going to be asking questions. It's like when I went to an American car dealership in Moscow and the guy was saying, I had a yellow and black jacket, and he's like, so why are you wearing a yellow color? Maybe you are one of them. Maybe you're working for Ukraine. Could you imagine how degrading they are right now, that they are thinking that if you wear yellow, you are a traitor to the country, a foreign spy? And those guys just having a bunch of photos of Ukrainian flags and tanks going over to the Ukrainian border. Wow. This is just, I'm pretty sure this was just all a huge setup, because having so much stuff to bring it back to Ukraine just doesn't make any sense whatsoever. And considering that the Islamic State has said that it was them who did that, it would make more sense if they had like the Islamic State flag on there and whatever else they have. I don't know. This looks like the biggest setup to get the Russian population to hate Ukraine even more. Because this way, the Russian president could say, look guys, they have come inside of the heart of Russia, and they have did this horrific thing to the people who have nothing to do with anything. They went to a concert. So right now, we should do a mobilization of 400,000 people to go and defend and revenge back for the Crocus City and defend the homeland. I am pretty sure that this is what is going to happen quite soon. And I would really appreciate to hear your comments about this and what you guys think about this situation in general. And I would really appreciate if you guys could press the like button, subscribe to the channel. Obviously, don't forget to comment on what you think about this situation. And I would see you guys next time. Thank you very much for watching. I love every single one of you. Keep safe and see you later.